must throw perfection out the window and embrace chaos and messiness when it comes to your coaching for athlete development. Before we get into that topic, I'll be discussing my 5 favorite productivity tips and hacks that I've been using over the last 6 months to prioritize and filter what's most relevant to my daily and weekly goals, as well as provide a quick update on the guests coming onto the show and our upcoming monthly Academy Get Better plan. So let's dive straight into it. Firstly, my 5 favorite productivity tips. And for those on Twitter, I just posted this. So it'd be great to get a thread going for any business owners, strength and conditioning, high performance staff, or anyone that values productivity. I'd love to know your favorite tips. Doesn't have to be 5. Just comment in the thread below and be good to see what's working for everyone. But for me, number 1, not in order. This is just 5 favorite that have most serviceable for me over the last few months. So, iPhone calendar. I've segmented key areas of my life, not just from a work point of view, but also family, social aspects that go in there. That's the color yellow. So I've segmented to different colors. We've got my Prepare Like a Pro work or any podcast that I've got coming up. So that's all in the iPhone calendar. So I've got an idea of what times I've segmented to certain days, as well as that's integrated into my full-time role at Melbourne Football Club that also uses the iPhone calendar. So that way, the night before, I can see where my openings are for the upcoming day. The role at Melbourne, especially in season, revolves a fair bit around game day. So there's a lot of change with week to week. But my Prepare Like a Pro focuses pretty consistent in terms of what I need to get done with a week, and they'll revolve around my role at Melbourne. So to make sure that I don't lose track of what's important for the business, I find setting weekly tasks and then fitting them in the gaps and putting them together. So like if I'm doing my weekly programming for the next week, the upcoming week with my athletes, I'll do that in one slot, sit down for 3 hours and do a good drafting of the upcoming program for that week. Same with my marketing content. Like on Thursdays at the moment is my podcasting day. So I bulk all my weekly updates, my monthly Get Better plan presentation for our Academy members, as well as any interviews. I put them all on Thursday. So once I've set everything up, it's in the calendar. My partner knows that's the day that I'm doing filming. So that's when she books errands and things. So it works both from a personal as well as professional aspects. So I find having a set calendar works really well, and having it on your phone is nice and easy because you can access it at any time. Number 2, once you've got that schedule and you know your themes for each day, then I think it's helpful and it's quite powerful, and there's research on this, to write down what's most important, your non-negotiables for that day. So I'll just use a simple notepad like I use for my notes when I'm about to do a presentation or a podcast. And I just write down all the big areas that I want to focus on, not in a hell of a lot of detail, but just the areas that I need to focus my energy on that day, because you can easily get caught up into little tasks and putting out fires here and there when you're running your own business. But you want to make sure that when you walk away from the day and the day's done, you put the notepad down or the computer down, that you've focused your energy on what's most important and what's going to move the needle for your business. So I think writing down your daily tasks, but also weekly non-negotiables is really, really effective for productivity. Number 3, filter your tasks for low, medium, and high energy tasks. I used to use Trello. However, I found it took too much time managing Trello and it actually drained from productivity. So that's where, for me, I just use my iPhone notes, and I'll have simple low energy tasks. And you can hashtag now with the iPhone to search for your low energy tasks. I'll have medium energy tasks, and then I'll have high energy tasks. The high energy tasks are the things that you want to be at your best and require the most amount of energy, and also are most important for your business. So for those, I'll do those typically first thing in the morning when my mind is sharpest. For the low energy tasks, I can pretty much do this at any time. So I'll just do that. Maybe you're public transport. You might be going walking the dog. You might be training. So anywhere it doesn't require too much creativity, doesn't create too much brain power, You can almost do it in autopilot, but they're important to, for example, it might be creating a title for upcoming video, or creating some titles that you want to do in some upcoming blog posts, or direct messaging people back from social media that have sent through some questions or some inquiries, so that your emails that would take less than 2 minutes to complete. Things like that, your low energy tasks. And then your medium tasks would sit more in things that you want to do, that you need to consistently do on a weekly basis, like your programming, your marketing, content creation, any website upkeep that you do if you've got a membership, podcast, if you've got staff, invoicing, those sort of things. I'll usually block those together. So I'm doing them all in like a 2-hour window, because it just helps. That I find that helps from an energetic point of view. So you're not going to do those in little bits and pieces like the low energy tasks, because it won't be as effective for time. You sort of do them in one slot. So that would be number 3. Number 4, wake up before the kids. So for any parents out there either watching this live YouTube show, or for podcast, those listening to the podcast, and you've got kids, you'll know that you can't get hell of a lot of work, and nor do you want to do a lot of work while they're around. You want to play and have fun. So for me, I make sure I do my high energy tasks, the most important things, first thing in the morning, and set an alarm and wake up before the kids and get that done. It sets up your day. So that would be number 4, wake up before the kids. And then number 5, repurpose your content. What I mean by that, when I do a podcast, that's also for short form content. So it becomes 4 TikToks, 4 Instagram Reels, 4 YouTube Shorts. It also becomes a 6-minute YouTube Premiere video. So our editor will create all that, all from the 45-minute interview. It becomes a blog post where I'll write a short blog about the topic. So for this one, it's all about why coaches need to embrace messiness. So after this podcast, when we launch it, I'll also embed the video and write a 1,000-word blog post on our website. So once you've found your title, you've found what you're going to talk about, try and maximize the amount of work that you're doing on that particular content. It's going to make your life easier. You're going to create more engagement, but also the quality of work should also be better too, because you're focusing more energy on one particular topic rather than trying to create all this content and not putting as much time and effort into the one thing. So definitely recommend repurpose. And that also can literally also be repurpose your content. So for example, our testimonials, any videos that we've had happy athletes talk about our product, or coaches talk about our academy, we'll usually repurpose that content. So schedule it maybe once a year. That's posted on our socials. So also repurpose, because you're constantly getting new followers in the business, new eyeballs on your product. So for someone that watched a year ago, you're going to get new people watching that content a year later. But also, if the people watch it the first time, it's not a bad idea to also remind them why your product is so good. So they're my 5. Okay, let's get into why coaches must embrace messiness and also encourage chaos in your program. And it's important, not just from an athlete development point of view, but also to help bridge the gap between strength and conditioning and playing their sport. So, for example, for Australian rules football, it is an extremely chaotic sport. It's contact. It's a massive oval. There's 36 players on the ground, 360 degrees. So it is literally chaos everywhere for every second of the game. So we want to make sure that, yes, athletes know what a successful rep, like a hip hinge, feels like. But once they know what a successful rep feels like, feel free to put constraints in place that they're going to make mistakes. They're going to fail. Let them fall on their face, because it's going to be the strongest feedback for them to be able to make sure they get it right the next time. So let them work out how they can find the most effective strategy. All you need to do is be able to show them the movement, what success looks like. And this is what we're looking for. This is what we're focusing on. And I need you to finish in this position. So for example, if we're trying to work on like foot for above during a switching drill on the wall, then I'd have my hand just above the wall, the floor, and making sure that once they've finished their switch, that they're continually driving their knee up and their hip into that hip flexion, so they're not just sagging and letting the toe point towards the ground. Or if we're focusing on punching overhead, have a hand up for them to punch towards overhead for any of those co-contraction movements. We're working that oblique swing where they're throwing an aqua bag overhead. So have those areas where they work out what they need to do to get throughout the whole movement. You're just showing them how to do it, what we're looking for, and then they work it out for themselves and put constraints in place. Once they've had some good movement, put constraints in place that ensure that it's about 30% messy. That's something that I learned from John Pryor, JP. He talked about that, how important it is for carryover and for development, is that the athlete isn't in that comfortable place where they're on top of the movement, where they're any of those coordinated movements. We want to be constantly challenging the system by adding variables to it to make sure that it's 30% messy. So it's not 100% clean. They're challenging their stability, and then they're trying to increase their speed, and increase the complexity of the drill pretty much every time you're doing it. But the big rocks stay the same. If it's a hip block drill, you need to make sure that the constraints you're putting in place aren't taking away from the fact that it is a hip block drill. That's really, really important. So what you'll find with this implicit-based learning, number one, athletes are learning a really great lesson that they need to work it out themselves and find a way, just like on the football field. Number two, you're going to get better carryover to on-field performance in terms of their movement mechanics, because they're never moving the same all the time on the field. So that movement variability is key. And then number three, that failing feedback is going to be the strongest message. They don't want to be falling on their face 2 times in a row. It's embarrassing. So it's a really strong message for athletes to make sure they get the next rep right. Where if it's too easy, then it becomes fluffy and athletes just go through the motion, they switch off, they get into autopilot mode. And I'm sure coaches out there have seen that before. So if you know that movement is too fluffy and that didn't get the desired effect, that's okay. Next time, make sure you put a constraint in place to challenge that athlete, and straight away they're going to enjoy it more. You're going to enjoy it because it's going to have a better vibe, a better energy in the gym, and overall you're going to be making it a better experience for athletes and coaches in the weights room and on the field. So that's it. Pretty short and sweet topic. If you have any questions around this, feel free to get in touch. This is a relatively new focus of mine. I would say probably the last 18 months, where I've really embraced chaos. For a while there, I really saw myself as one of my biggest strengths as a coach was a technician, and making sure that I teach the athletes and really break down and get that repetition in. And I think that is important early on in your coaching career. You don't want to create too much complexity where the athletes are leaving the room confused and they don't know what a bad rep or a successful rep feels like, or the difference between the two. So you need to make sure that there is some explicit learning, there is some direct feedback. You're showing them the camera, you're giving them some feedback, some cues. You're giving them that feedback not only from audio but also video. They're feeling it as well. You might need to give them feedback by and as long as make sure you ask for consent, but touching them. So let's say you're trying to challenge them to switch on their glutes more, and you might be get them to push out towards their knee or keep their ribs down. So touching the bottom of their ribs, so they need to keep their ribs down, things like that, to challenge them and give them that direct feedback. So they build up their own awareness, and over time they'll have the skill set to be able to know what a successful rep is and what they need to do differently next time to ensure that they master that movement. And then as a coach, your role is then just to add complexity to that movement once they've mastered it. All right, so going into this week's podcast, we've got Billy Hewlin coming up in 20 minutes, so make sure to hang around. And he's the head sports science at Collingwood Football Club, so looking forward to discussing load monitoring and performance metrics with Billy, so make sure to hang around for that one. We've got Carmen Colomer, the head of performance at Perth Glory. She's worked at 4 different elite sporting codes, both rugby union, rugby league, the NBA, and now is working in the A-League. So that was a great episode for anyone that works in high performance sport. We discussed how performance metrics should be influencing your recovery prescription. All right, so that was a ripping episode. Make sure to listen to the recording on Wednesday. We'll be publishing that. Thursday, I've got my monthly Get Better plan. So for all the Academy members listening in, I'll be discussing how to maximize a podcast to market your brand and repurpose multiple forms of content. So from literally the first step of booking in a guest for an interview, all the way through to when we publish it, and how I use virtual assistants through that process to assist me in the tasks, and how we grow from creating a 45-minute interview that's done on Restream to creating TikToks, Instagrams, YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, as well as email, blog posts, all the different forms of content that we get from our podcast, and how we go about creating live engagement, and also how to publish it onto your chosen platform. So if you're interested in potentially running a podcast, or you want to streamline your podcast process, tune into this month's Get Better Plan coaching call. And I also hang around every month and answer any of your questions, business and coaching. So if you're interested to join, it's only $20 a month. You can head over to propellerproacademy.com.au, and that'll be this Thursday at 2 p.m. We're hosting that. At 3 o'clock, I've got my weekly update where I will be discussing the principles of injury mitigation from a strength and conditioning point of view. So if you're interested in reducing your injuries at your football club, make sure to tune in. That'll be this Thursday at 3. And then we have Steve Saunders, who's an expert in the industry. He'll be discussing integrating performance and medical science for team success. And we'll be leaning on a fair bit of his experience working at the Geelong Cats during their premiership year last season. So he is an absolute world of knowledge, Steve. If you haven't heard, make sure to check out his work, and he'll be not only talking about the science, but also how to apply that science from a medical and performance point of view. So looking forward to that chat. That will be 4 p.m. this Thursday. And then our bite-sized episode will be with Sam Newman. That was a cracking episode. So I'll be releasing 10 minutes from that episode. If you love it, search for the full episode on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you listen to your podcast. Quick promo to Huberman Lab for their recent episode. I'm only halfway through. It's a very long episode, but it's well worth it if you're interested in recovery and, more importantly, sleep. It's highly detailed, very thorough. They go dive into the science, and then how that can the practical implications of that in terms of sleep, and how important the different cycles of sleep are for your health and for your performance from an emotional, from a cognitive focus point of view, but also from a hormonal point of view to enhance learning. So I think that's pretty much applicable to anyone. Dr. Gina Poe was the guest on that one, so make sure to tune in there. And that's it for this week. So if you have any questions, make sure to reach out. And otherwise, I'll see you for our upcoming episode with Billy. Thank you.